Hey, welcome to Book World: The Great Escape. I'm author C.J. Peterson. This is my co-host over here, author Michael Scott Clifton. Today we're going to be talking about how to handle a critique and a review. Before we get there, Mike, how was your week?
It was a good one, kind of tiring. We had our first Comic Con of the year. Actually, it was Anime Con, which was this past Saturday and Sunday in Little Rock, and it rained on us all the way down there.
Oh,
It rained on and off the whole time we were there, and then it rained most of the way back home on Sunday. But still had a pretty good turnout. VXV Events is the one that does this particular Comic Con. They did a really good job. And anyway, we sold a bunch of books and got to meet some new fans. And for authors who have a number of books published, like you and I, CJ, I actually ran into some fans who had read books that had books, got books from me, or ordered them online, or got them from a bookstore, and came by and told me how much they enjoyed the stories and the
nice.
books. And of course, that's something you can't really put a monetary value on. It always leaves you with that warm and fuzzy feeling. So all in
Mhm.
all, it was a good experience, good week so far.
Awesome. You have anything coming up this weekend?
No, the next event I have is really not until, well, you know how we, as authors, we may be doing some local events like Dalton Days and Longview Art Walk, and some others.
Hmm.
But most of the Comic Cons that we have so far, and if you go to these, you have to schedule them way in advance, are generally this summer and next fall. So really, the one we went to this in last weekend is kind of a early one for us.
Hmm.
So and so there's, like I said, looking forward to some local events that'll be occurring over the next several months, but don't really have any big ones scheduled for a while.
Fun. Well, this weekend I helped run Brazoria Comic Con. For anybody that was there, is that streak running across the floor? That was me. I actually calculated my steps this time. On Saturday, I had over 13,900 in
Good for you.
just Saturday alone. No, not good for me. I was ready to pass out. Um, Funny thing I learned is that when my watch hits 10,000, it actually dings and gives me a trophy for all of 5 seconds before it disappears. Never knew that till this weekend. So that's a fun fact I learned. But no, it was fun. Usually is. And then, so again, as you were saying, had the rain on the way down, the rain there on Saturday, off and on. And actually, not really as much on Saturday, but Friday night were storms and kind of flooded a little bit. Saturday wasn't too bad, actually. It wasn't any rain during the day itself. It might have been some in the morning, but that was it. And then Sunday, we were pretty good. And then just a long drive home. It takes us about 8 hours to get down to Lake Jackson and back. Well, 8 hours one way. So it was 16 hours in the car.
Wow.
So, yeah. Our next one is going to be March 8th, 9th, and 10th, and that's Comic Conroe in Conroe, Texas. So looking forward to that one. I've actually been able to run all four of those. This is the fourth one. So pretty excited to see what this year is bringing us. We have a meeting tonight, so we'll see. In the meantime, as you said, we have how to handle a critique and a review. So it's kind of nice that you kind of use that little segue because you mentioned some people had stopped by to talk to you about your books. So question is, how do you handle it? Yeah, you get the warm and the fuzzies, but you don't want to be kind of egotistical about it. Yeah, I know. It was great, wasn't it? That's just not a way to handle it.
Right. Right. Um, well, if you're an author, you do have to have a thick skin,
Mhm.
because you don't always get good reviews, and you don't always get good critiques either. and and we've both been on, the we've both been on those polar opposite ends, where you received a scathing critique, and then on the other end, where everything is, just loved your book, your story, everything is awesome and good. And and if you're in this business for a while, you definitely going to get the range of the emotions you receive from the range of types of critiques and reviews that you get, because they're not always going to be great and they're not always going to be bad either. And sometimes they fall somewhere in the middle. And
No, there are trolls too, just kinda keep a heads up,
yeah,
but they try to irritate you and get you
right.
to respond, so you need to know the difference between them.
I think generally, if you're getting a one or two, like if you use 5 stars as the standard for review, five being the best, 1 star being the worst, uh, and you have multiple books published and you've been doing this for a while, yeah, you're going to get trolls. Those 1 and 2 star reviews, I suspect um, a majority of them, if not most, probably do come from trolls. A lot of times, particularly if they're doing it on Amazon or Goodreads, their comment, if they have any, may be one sentence or less long, or they may not even leave a comment. And those,
Or I've gotten one where it's like 1 or 2 stars and just I haven't read the book, and I'm like, "Why did you rate it then?" I have
yes,
gotten those.
right, right, and it's that's just the name of the game. It's part of what you have to expect if you're going to be an author and write multiple books, and if you're in it for the long run, it's just going to happen. And uh, and like you were saying, CJ, you're on top of the world when you get those 5 star reviews, or someone comes by at a book event that you're at, and they say, "Hey, I just loved your book. Just awesome. It's you're the best author since Stephen King. You're the best author since John Grisham, or Agatha Christie, or something like that." And enjoy those moments, because trust me, there will be a time where you will have the other end show up, and you got to be able to take the good with the bad.
I know what I do a lot of times is when I first started, I grabbed like 2 or 3 reviews that really touched my heart for those days where I try to figure out why am I still writing. Those are the ones that make you feel good and be like, "Okay, this is why I'm writing. This is who I'm writing for." Those are the ones that you focus on. There are gonna be some where one of them gave me a 2-star review because there was too much Bible in a Christian fiction book.
Mm.
Um, I let it stand, and I had somebody pop up later that said, "Great, thank you. Now I'm actually gonna buy the book for that reason." And a lot of times it's not even just on like Amazon or Goodreads or whatever. Sometimes they try to do it to you on Twitter. And quite
Yes.
honestly,
Yeah.
I ignore them and I let my people handle them because they do really, really well at it. So if it's not very nice, I just hands off and let them handle it because A, I'm not going to feed into it. They're just looking for attention. And B, I know that my people, my tribe, are going to take care of them. So I'm just going to leave it to them.
If you do a major book promo, uh,
Mhm,
you're going to get, uh, no matter how, you could have the best written book in the world, you could have the worst. Okay.
mhm,
You get the most interesting story and the most boring. But when you do a major book promo, you're going to get the occasional, you know, Debbie Downers, the ones that don't like anything that you've written. A lot of times, it doesn't even make sense what they're
mhm,
saying, and often they don't even leave any kind of a written review, which to me piques me more than the review itself. Because if I get a poor review, I'd like to know why, uh,
mhm,
instead of just leaving a 1 or 2 star review. And because that's kind of that's and then that brings us back to kind of the purpose of the topic that we're discussing today, about how to handle a critique. Well, handling the critique means that you learn from them as
mhm,
well, because once you've been doing this for a while, again, and you touched on that, CJ, about the trolls and things like that, you recognize what are the genuine critiques, the genuine reviews, and which ones are just those that they just troll, and they throw mud on everything.
mhm,
But you can use a critique; it's very valuable because maybe there's something about your writing that you're too close to and you don't see it,
Mhm.
and you want someone to point that out, or you should want someone to point that out.
Yeah, I actually have a perfect example of that. One of the ones, and again, there's a difference between constructive and destructive, and we'll get into that more next week when we talk about how to give a review and a critique. But when it comes to that particular thing, um, I had gotten one, and I kind of still look through them, even if they're not very good, just to see if there is something in there that I could pull from it. And one of them had said, it was like my third book, I think. They said, not everybody gets saved that they get talked to. And I said, they're right. So the next book, person didn't get saved and they ended up dying. I, but it brought up a really good point.
Yeah,
And because of that, I think it adds a little bit more realism to the books themselves because not everybody does. Not everybody believes it. Not everybody takes it to heart. And that allowed me to see something that, again, I was maybe a little too close to
right.
and was like, oh, you know what? That's a really good point. So you can find them, even in the destructive ones, you can still find something. Sometimes they're just mean
Right.
and you just got gutted. And honestly, those you're gonna have to just set aside because they are meant to be destructive and not constructive. If you can find something at it, then okay, great. I learned from this one and I'm gonna move forward.
Again, you have to have a thick skin, and you have to be willing to keep an open mind on others' perceptions of your writing,
Mhm.
which kind of brings us to what is the difference between a critique and a review. And a review is something that you get either from a online publication, and it could be Kirkus, it could be Feathered Quill, it could be Amazon, it could be Goodreads, it could
Mhm.
be any
Barnes& and
kind.
Noble,
Yes,
any
Barnes
of
and
that.
Noble. It could be, any pretty much any online organization where reviews are posted. Whereas a critique, at least in the sense that, for example, that I use it, is a critique can be partners, fellow writers, people that you submit, samples of your writing chapters. A lot of authors have a favorite author friend of theirs, and they sort of critique each other's work, and they
It's
try.
almost like a peer review, like you would
Right.
find in a lot of, science type stuff or English type
And
stuff.
trust comes in there because you trust
Mhm.
these are people you know, and they know you,
Mhm.
and so uh, and that's too very important. It's very important. Just because you know them doesn't mean that, and we'll talk about this more, as you said, next week about giving a review. But when your critique partner or partners, I belong actually to a group that has 7 different people involved in it. So there's like 7 or 8 of us that critique each other's work. But you have to trust your critique partner or partners when they give you an honest review. If you trying to see how I put this. If you browbeat them, if you make it, maybe you're sending out subtle signals, during the course because maybe you've been
You
doing this.
have you have to have a certain level of respect for them
Right,
and
right.
for their work, because if they write crap and they're telling you that you're writing crap, then the respect is not there. But if you have somebody who you know that their stuff is good. For example, my editor actually, I have a copy and a content. The content one is an author, and I read her books. I love her books, and she's great. What she does is she's going through it though is kind of a critique while she's doing the editing. She'll put stuff like, "I don't know why you do this every time," stuff like that. But I respect her, and I'm like, you know what? I would rather you took the red pen through it than a reader take it through it.
And so
So,
you're giving an example of professional a professional critique or editing,
mhm.
if you want to use that, that a lot of authors do use.
Well, she's more than just an editor, though, because she does do that. She kind of puts that over the critique line, which is why
Right.
I mentioned it. But yeah, there are professional ones. Yeah, she will sit there and she'll tell me, "Really? this doesn't happen, or you got this part wrong, try again, or
Um,
you can actually probably cut this part out.
and if you're paying them, if a
Mhm.
lot of people get, a lot of authors, of course, there's what content editing, there's just straight grammar
Copy,
editing,
there's
copy editors,
developmental, there's
yeah, there's a lot of different editors out there. When and so if you're paying them, obviously you should be able to trust
mhm,
what they come back and tell you, and you need to be in a author's. We've all met. We have been doing this long enough, CJ. We've met a lot of different authors that write a lot in a lot of different genres. The best ones in terms of what I have seen, I don't know about you, are those that can take constructive criticism
mhm.
and produce a better product because of it.
Now here's the thing, us as authors, we're artists. We just draw our art is with words, but it's still the same amount of anxiety that an artist has. We kind of
Yes.
have got our little baby and we're like, please world, don't squish it. Please don't rip my heart out and squish it and make it a mess. I'm trying to present this to you. And we're as anxious as the next person. And we're terrified that somebody's going to hate it. Um, but when you've been at it for a while, it's kind of like my theory almost comes up of that it wasn't meant for you. Now, again, I will look at them and say, okay, what can I learn? But I've been at it for a while. I have 19 books, 19 novels out. So when you reach that point, it's a little bit different than if it's your first or your second or even your fifth. You still have that high anxiety of, especially if you're putting something out different. Like I'm a multi-genre. So when I go to put out something from like a completely different genre than I'm used to and used to putting out, I'm always just like,
Oh yeah.
please don't,
Yeah.
please don't hurt it.
Well, I think the obviously critiques and reviews are essential for
Mhm,
any successful author. Reviews, although you can get professional reviews. The best ones come from your normal, average, everyday readers,
mhm.
and they are invaluable in giving feedback, not just so you feel good when you get a good review and get that tingly feeling all over you, but also the feedback that if you're doing things right and sometimes when you're doing things wrong. Whereas with a critique, again, I think that's more of a professional. It's like you're either paying
Mhm.
someone to do editing,
Or
uh,
like a beta reader
you beta
or
reader,
somebody
right?
who's had an ARC,
Right.
advanced reader copy. So there are different levels of getting critiques and stuff. It just depends on what you're looking for and what you trust. Like I don't trust beta readers, I don't trust critique groups, but that's me. You do. You find the benefit of it a little bit more than I do with just my editors. So it just depends on what you're comfortable. There's no set formula for it. There's
No.
no you have to send it to this or you have to put it through that. That doesn't exist.
One thing I've found in the critique group that I belong to, particularly those, if you're in a critique group where you have multiple personalities, multiple
Mhm.
people that are involved in it, everybody comes to writing, to critiquing at a different angle. Nobody is exactly the same,
Mhm.
and that's what I think is that's the value in having someone who can look at your work with an unjaundiced eye and maybe see an angle or see something that you simply don't see because as an author you're blind to it. I mean, how many times have we uh, wrote something out, got it typed up, we've gone over it 100 times, we've read it dozens of times, and we left a word out
Mhm.
because our mind is substituting the word because it flows in our mind, but we don't see it, or we don't see an obvious discrepancy in the plot. And you
Or
have,
we don't catch our own little idiosyncrasies
yeah,
like that, using that over too much or just or actually. A lot of times they can catch those for us.
repeating the same words, repeating the same phrases.
Passive writing,
Passive,
had been, has been, or are being, there are ways to catch that. And one of them is through critique groups. One of them is through reviews because undoubtedly everybody has some sort of issue about writing whatever it may be. For example, my English teacher hated it when people put the word a lot together. She says that doesn't exist. She goes, I will ding you every time. Honestly, from that point forward, I remembered that and I keep splitting a and lot for that very reason. And a lot of times they can catch that stuff. Again, that. My editor caught the word that. So I do the entire thing and then I click search and I put the little that in there. And if I can read through the sentence and pull the word that out, I do. But now I see it in everybody else's writing.
I need you to speak to our critique group, CJ, because I've been saying that about that for a long time, and
It's
it's
painful.
falling in deaf ears. No, don't offend anyone in my critique group, but yeah, I know it. Yeah, so, but that's a perfect example of again uh, the different angles that people come from in the way that they write or they view your writing, and
Mhm.
that's the point, isn't it, of a critique? Is that very thing is they're looking at it from a different point of view, and it either makes sense to them or it doesn't, and you have to have thick skin. Again, you need take the constructive criticism that you receive either from readers reviews or from people that you feel that you're part of a critique group with, and use it to make your writing better. Don't get
Mhm.
your feelings hurt.
Yeah, there's I can think of one time there was an author and I took his book and I had to do a lot of editing for it. And I sent it and called him at the exact same time because I knew if I called him, he wouldn't get that email until I was on the phone with him. And I told him, I said, look, there's going to be a lot of red, but you need it and it's there for a reason. And it let me help you by showing you where your little idiosyncrasies, where your picadillos are, however you want to word it, find them, and then you can weed them out yourself after a while. Um, that's one great way to do it. And he appreciated it and he rewrote it. He did it much better. So if you can find somebody that you trust to go through that and to give you a critique, a lot of times, you know what I'll do, and I'll explain this again next week, the compliment sandwich. And so we'll talk more about that one next week, but that's one good way to do it. But the reviews themselves, especially online, they are invaluable because 9 out of 10 times they are an actual reader and they will tell you if you go through if it's extremely harsh, go to the reviews and see if they're harsh with everybody or see if it's just this particular book because it may just be this particular book that they do not like. And that's okay. That's the thing. There's a radio station out there for everybody, but not everybody likes every single radio station. That's okay, and that's something you're going to have to accept. But consider the source is good and look for those nuggets to improve yourself for the next book.
If you want reviews, if reviews are to mean anything other than either a feel good feeling or not, then a writer needs to be able to look at those. And I don't know if you necessarily need to adjust your writing accordingly, but it is a sign. Either you're doing the right thing or there's some things that need to be changed because we're none of us perfect, and
Mhm.
we're all if you've been writing for a while, if you're just starting out, your journey as an author is always going to be changing. The lanes will go left, they may go right, and hopefully your trajectory is forward and you become a better author, a better writer, and your books are better because of it. And critiques and reviews are a very important means by that to happen for that to happen.
But challenge yourself. See if there's something that you can physically do in there for your next book. Say, okay, I'm going to read through these. What can I change for the next one? Or what can I change in my future in writing? Use them. Don't just toss them
Yeah.
to the side because you don't like them or they hurt your feelings. And honestly, save some for those times where you're writing and you feel low because we hit those points and you're like, I don't have time for this. Why am I doing this? You're doing it for that particular reader or that particular set of readers because they do like what you're writing and they do like your style, even if it's different than somebody else's. They like what you're doing because you're reaching them, and that's why you're writing. And so that's a lot of times what I'll do with some of them.
And don't let the lack of reviews, if you're a new author, if you're just starting out, don't let the lack of reviews discourage you. They come with time. Uh, and they come as you mature as an author, you publish more books, and you're writing the books you write become well known, and you grow readership. And so just don't let the lack of reviews set you back, because nobody starts out being a best-selling author. At least most people don't. I haven't been fortunate for that to happen, and I don't know many people that do. So let uh, the reviews will come. And I'm going to say this again because it's so important. As an author and a writer, if you don't have a thick skin, you probably aren't going to be very successful, because if you get your feelings hurt easily, probably writing and writing books, being an author, is probably not in the cards for you, your cup of tea, because you are going to be raked over the coals from time to time. In some cases, like you were saying, CJ, with trolls, unfairly so.
Hmm. Well, and here's the other thing is that, you know what? Kind of do a mind game on yourself for the first few books. If there's a negative review, it's going to hurt. It's going to sting. It stings me. It still stings me. That's a thing. It hurts. Um, if we weren't sensitive, we wouldn't be able to write what we write, because we write about other people. We write about what they're feeling, what they're doing, what they're seeing, what they're, smell, all the different senses. We wouldn't be able to do that if we were not sensitive beings to begin with. So you may have to play a little bit of a mind game on yourself for the first ones because they're going to hurt. They might even make you cry. That's okay. Ignore it though. Set it aside till you're calmed down, and then go back, look at it, and say, can I learn anything from this? If it's just plain mean, then leave it aside. If there's something you can learn from it, then take it from there and use it for the next one. That's a good way to handle it. We can be thick skinned, but we're also sensitive beings as an
Right.
artist and as a creative anyway. So that's not something to be ashamed of. That's not something to completely disregard. As a matter of fact, don't disregard it because that makes you who you are in your style of writing. Just set it aside until you can go back and look at it objectively. And you have to look at it objectively. If you have to tell yourself, I'm reading this for my friend to find out what they can learn, then do so for the first few, several, whatever it takes till you are like, okay, I can read this and I can understand it and I can find what I need to change. There's always something we can change. An example is I take a speech class at school. I even take an English comp class, which I could probably do with my eyes closed. But there's always something I can learn. And I try to find that one thing or two things that I can learn from this class. It's a required class, but I can still learn from this. And I can take that and I can use it to make me a better person or a better writer, a better speaker, a better whatever it is. Take it, find it, use it. Look for the nugget. You may have to look underneath a lot of crud to find it, but you'll find it and take it to heart and use it for next time.
Was Thomas Edison, how many times did he fail before he successfully invented the light filament? Thousands.
Hmm.
So there's something to be said for soldiering on, and continuing and doing the things that you like to do. And writing and being an author is one of those. And you will be getting reviews, and you will be getting and hopefully you'll be part of critiques as well, either giving or receiving them. And
Hmm.
uh, and that's part of your author journey. And how you handle that will probably have a lot to do with how successful you are in getting
Hmm.
your books published and people buying them.
Failure is just a way to begin again a little bit with a little bit more knowledge and a little bit more underneath your belt, a little bit more experience. But it's not necessarily a failure. It's just a learning experience. And that's the way you got to look at stuff. It's not necessarily success or failure. It's what do I learn? and take
Yeah.
those and go forward. Next week, we're going to be talking about how to give a critique and a review
Mhm.
because we've talked about the negative side effects of a really bad one, but how can we give one when there are some things that may need to be adjusted? We'll find out next week for Valentine's Day as we're learning how to give love to authors and to share the love. Catch you guys next week.